Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Good day, welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. You can watch this program live on our Facebook page, that's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can also hear us live on our audio streaming at Evox PBS receiver app and also on our online streaming. So join us for another edition of Front and Center with your host, Jerome Toledo.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Before we talk about the recent 20% tariff that was imposed by the Trump administration to the Philippines, that was announced earlier this morning here in the Philippines, let's focus first on the agricultural developments here in the Philippines, particularly the solution provided by the Department of Economy, Development and or DepDev, as they eye solutions to maintain stable rice prices and protect farmers. Again, that's a Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev. And they're looking at several options to come up with a win-win solution. So just to keep the rice prices affordable and stable while also safeguarding the welfare of our farmers. So Undersecretary Rosemary G. Edilion said that one of the options that they come up for that solution is to provide direct assistance to our farmers by so that it will minimize the impact of the reduced tariff on imported rice. And also, DepDev is also studying the possible setting of a floor price for palay procurement to help protect local farmers. And in relation to that, the Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan has filed a set of Senate resolutions to seek urgent legislative review of landmark agriculture and fisheries policies. So he particularly wanted to review and assess the effectiveness of the Sagip Saka Act of 2019, as well as the impact of the rice tariffication law and the effect of the commercial fishing in municipal waters on small-scale farmers. Senator Pangilinan said that during campaign period, he heard issues directly from farmers and fisher folks, such as the unstable rice prices, and as well as the no direct access to markets for their produce, and the recent ruling of the Supreme Court on allowing commercial fishing vessels or fishing companies to fish within 15 kilometers of municipal waters. And he filed those proposals to ensure that farmers and fisher folks are not left behind. And recently, he reportedly eyeing for chairmanship of the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Food, which he previously handled during or in the previous Congress. I think that's during the time of the former President Noynoy Aquino. And also, recently, particularly yesterday, the Department of Justice or DOJ's anti-agricultural smuggling arm, which is the Anti-Agricultural Economic Sabotage Council, announced that they have seized almost 30,000 sacks of smuggled rice. So to be exact, that's 26,526 sacks of smuggled rice. That's worth 38 million pesos. Those were seized by the council in a warehouse in Talisay City in Cebu. And the raiding team discovered that the area occupied by distributor River Valley Distribution contained those thousands of rice or sacks of rice weighing about 800 tons. And the Agricultural or Anti-Agricultural Economic Sabotage Council conducted its first enforcement operations on June 20, a day after the executive committee issued a letter of authority directing the enforcement group to inspect different warehouses in Kimba compound for allegedly containing smuggled agricultural products in violation of the AAES law. And yesterday, July 8th, the Court of Tax Appeals granted a seizure order against the goods following a petition by the PNP or CIDG in coordination with the DOJ Special Team of Prosecutors. And the government, of course, will set to file economic sabotage charges against the trader as we know, economic sabotage under Philippine law is non-bailable offense. And the operation was in line with President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s strong commitment to safeguarding food security and upholding the rule of law. And my observation is this. So, if the council seized about 30,000 sacks of rice that's worth 38 million, so what about those? So, if they just caught one, but what if they discovered five? So that's gonna be like a 100 million. So that that amount will contribute to our economy because we are talking about 38 million here. So that's the amount loss, or that's the revenue loss. So we can suggest to our council, particularly this one, the Anti-Agricultural Smuggling or Anti-Agricultural Economic Sabotage Council, to conduct more operations to seize more sacks of rice, because this smuggled rice is affecting our income or our economic income. Imagine 38 million pesos is being lost on our revenue. So that's a good job for that council. They are seizing and they are acting against these unscrupulous traders. So we will have to watch out for more developments on that as they just started conducting this operation, as they implemented this anti-agricultural economic sabotage law.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
And we've just talked about earlier about the 20% tariff that was imposed by the Trump administration to the Philippines. Previously, the country has been slapped by 17% tariff rate, began during the first few days of the Trump administration. So we will have to get some details about this, because technically, so that's a 3% up. So previously we have a 17% that was imposed by the Trump administration. So we will speak with the economists regarding this, and how is this going to affect or make an impact on our economy, because 20% tariff rate is not that small. So how is the Philippines is going to take this, particularly our economy? So we will discuss these developments with the chief economist of the Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, Mr. Michael Ricafort, when Front and Center returns.
This is a public service announcement.
Isang paalala mula sa National Telecommunications Commission, National Capital Region o NTC-NCR. Ang kanilang Oplan Contra Tax Scams. Binabalaan ng publiko na sakaling kayo ay makatanggap ng kakaibang text messages sa mga di kilalang numero o di kaya ay mga text messages na may kahina-hinalang mga link. Huwag pansinin, huwag pindutin, huwag i-click ang link. Ipagbigay alam agad sa NTC website ntc.gov.ph o kaya'y sumulat sa kanilang email na contratextcam@gmail.com. Sa mga panahong ito, huwag padaya, maging wais na madla. Makibahagi sa Oplan Contra Text Scam. This is a public service announcement
Public service announcement.
from PBS, Presidential Broadcast Service, and Radyo Pilipinas.
Calling all runners out there. Ipakita ang pagmamahal sa inang bayan at soberanya. Halina't makilahok sa takbo para sa West Philippine Sea 2025 sa Quirino Grandstand, Manila sa darating na July 27, 2025. Mayroon itong tatlong kategorya, 3K, 5K, at 10K. Race shirts are provided to all registered participants. Hayaang ang mga yabag ng ating mga paa ang maging simbolo ng nag-aalab na pagmamahal at pakikibaka para sa West Philippine Sea. Para sa registration at karagdagang detalye, bisitahin ang official Facebook page ng Philippine Information Agency. Isang mensahe mula sa PIA at ng himpilang ito.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome back to Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service with me, Jerome Toledo. And earlier, I discussed about the 20% tariff rate that was imposed by the Trump administration. So that's up by 3%. So previously, we have been slapped by 17% tariff rate. So how is this going to affect our economy, and what will be the impact? So how can this affect our economy in general? So we now have on the line the chief economist of the Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, Mr. Michael Ricaford. Sir Mike, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Jerome, and to your viewers. Nice to be back.
All right. So thank you again for taking our invite on such a short notice, but we appreciate it. Anyway, so this morning, or here in the Philippines, the Trump administration has imposed a 20% tariff rate on our country. So what's going to be the impact on this, on our economy in general?
Well, the initial effect would be it would become more expensive for our exports to be sold to the U.S.
Yes.
Because they're imposing a tax of 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's slightly higher compared to 17% during the first announcement by Trump last April 2.
Yeah.
Although a week after that, April 9, we paused the tariffs for 90 days, and it expired yesterday, July 9. That was a baseline tariff of 10% for everybody else. So now he reverted it back to the reciprocal tariff, but it's a bit higher at 20%, meaning to say exporters who sell to the US, their products will be sold 20% more because it will be imposed a 20% tax whenever it's sold to the US or shipped to the US. So
Okay.
It's either the consumers in the US and the buyers there, whether consumers or businesses, they have to pay 20% more.
So,
Or if
sir,
they have,
okay, Mike, so they both Filipino and American consumers can be affected by this.
yeah, and it sometimes depends on competition. It's either those who buy there, they pay up to the 20% additional tax or the tariff, or it could also be absorbed by the Philippine exporter if there's depending on their agreement and their on competition there. So it could also mean if the exporter would absorb it, narrower profit margins, and at the very least, because it would lead to higher prices there in the US.
But our exporters, I don't hear any information or news that our exporters will absorb those tariff rates. So that's they will either raise their prices.
Yeah, that's a possibility. If it can be passed, the higher tariff would be if it can be passed by businesses, they would do so. And if it would lead to higher prices, that could reduce the demand. Actually, the bigger headache is with our neighboring countries because their exports are much bigger than us. The exports of more developed ASEAN countries and Asian, especially ASEAN countries, they're 3 to 5 times higher than the merchandise exports of the Philippines, and they're more export dependent for their economies than us. So they may have a bigger problem and headache because of these uncertainties.
Yeah.
yeah, because they have to plan their
Well,
inventories, their capacity,
that's
their
right.
new investment expansion plans, and
And they have
even the
manufacturing
suppliers.
plants here. Some U.S. companies have plants here in our ASEAN regions. And also, I have the data here, Mr. Michael. So, Brunei received 25% tariff rate, while Thailand and Cambodia got 36%, and as well as the Indonesia at 32%, Myanmar and Laos at 40%, and Malaysia at 25%. So there will be you mentioned that these countries will receive a lot of headaches. They will feel the pain of the tariff rates because this is significantly higher. Though it's not at 50%, so that's gonna be painful for them. So yeah, so it's the Philippines in a better position.
Well, so far, everybody's feeling the pain, but the 20% tariff from the Philippines is so far among the lowest compared to the recent announcement by Trump since at least since this week. And we're same as Vietnam,
Yeah.
but of course there's a provision there. If it's transshipment from other countries such as from China, it will be imposed a 40% tariff. And from 25% from Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, and the highest here in the region is Laos and Myanmar, 40%. And
Yes,
second to the highest is Thailand and Cambodia, 36%, and Indonesia, 32%. So
that's
yeah, they
terribly
feel it,
higher.
and they're more export dependent.
Yes.
They have 3 to 5 times exports, merchandise exports or goods exports than the Philippines, and their economies, the growth of their economies, they create more jobs for their citizens and their suppliers, their supply chain. So they'll feel the pinch more, because the uncertainty there is because Trump is unpredictable. We cannot really tell by now what will be the final. Yeah, he said that the fact that the next deadline now as extended is August 1.
August
So
1,
there's
yes.
room. Yeah, 3 weeks to negotiate. The markets are also sizing up Trump. At least the markets, the peso opened stronger. It's doing now at 56.46.
So,
Yesterday at
mhm,
56.47.
mhm.
The stock market is higher by 0.5%. Now it's doing at 6,530 levels. So it's the highest in nearly 2 months, and it's also among the highest in like 6 months. And the market's already priced in, and they take consolation of the fact that at least Trump gave leeway, a 3-week window within which for countries like the Philippines to negotiate lower, because Trump in recent months, at least since April, his track record has been, there's a so-called taco. Trump always chickens out. At the start of the negotiations, he usually threatens with higher tariffs.
Okay.
But upon negotiations, there's a chance for a compromise and to bring it down significantly. So that has been the track, because we have seen that in the example of China.
Well, that
So
depends.
eventually,
Well,
yeah,
that
they settled
depends.
to a much lower tariff.
Uh-huh.
So that has been his track record. So yeah,
Well,
the threat first here at the start of the negotiations.
so that's the
Yeah,
but that depends on the negotiation between for example our trade and industry department and also the trade representatives from the United States. So it's really dependent on how they negotiate these tariff rates, so that
yeah,
they both won't get affected by this drastically.
yeah, definitely. There's an effort that must come into it. But that's the dynamic. That has been the pattern that we have seen. There could be some constructive improvements and reduction in tariff rates eventually if based on the track record. We have seen that on China when they escalated it to as high as like 145%. That was April 10 to May 11. And then they brought it down to eventually just 30% now since May 12. And, it's really Trump trying to get concessions in between. And, hopefully things would get better. That there's still some hope. But of course, it's hard to be complacent at this point.
Well,
It's highly uncertain. Because
yes.
Trump said that the final decision would rest on him. regardless of the negotiations. The final say would be on him. So that's something hard to predict.
Okay,
But
yeah.
of course, this is not as surprising anymore. This is similar to what we saw last April 2 during the Liberation Day, the reciprocal tariffs. Although for some countries it's a bit higher, but it's similar. But the thing is, a consolation there, the Philippines is still among the lowest at 20%.
So, so what's gonna be the situation, Mr. Michael? So, are those countries that that has been slapped with higher tariffs? So, are they going to create or negotiate a trade with us so that they can bypass
Yeah,
this?
yeah, that's a chance actually. That's one of the opportunities, Sir Jerome. We're in, there's a problem by many countries that sell to the U.S. So they may have to look for alternative markets, export markets, such as the Philippines. And, you know, the, one way, of course, for those countries, export-oriented countries like China, Vietnam,
Yes.
Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
Malaysia, one way for them is to diversify their export markets, not
Yes.
just totally rely on the US. And they may have to sell more to us. And that could benefit the Philippines because there would be more products coming into the Philippines at lower prices, at better terms. We
Better
have been
terms.
in a free trade environment for the past 10 to 15 years.
All
True
right.
enough, yes, if there will be more imports into the country at lower prices, commodity prices are still among the lowest in 3 to 4 years. So our economy, Philippines is domestic oriented.
Mm-hmm.
75% consumer spending, and you know, despite the fact that the U.S. is the biggest export market of the Philippines, it's a total of 17%, but the amount is relatively less. We're kind of hedged. We're kind of hedged because our exports are largely service.
All right.
OFW remittances, that's 40 billion per year. BPO revenues at
Well.
40 billion per year,
Mhm.
and we have tourism revenues at a record of 13 billion dollars per year. So our exports are services.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So, Michael. So, well. My take on
For
that. All right. Anyway, my take on this is the lower the better.
Yeah, definitely. If we'll find out in 3 weeks' time by August 1 if Trump, if depending on the negotiations and depending on Trump's, of course, call, if he is gonna bring down these tariffs, and of course, in between, he
Mhm.
may get concessions for the U.S.
Okay.
Like, is concessions usually getting more investments for the U.S., the other protectionist policies, and they're not gonna produce the products being exported there from Asia. They would just well they would just have to pay up more.
Mm.
The exports would still go there like shoes, clothes,
Yes, that's right.
furniture. They would still come from Asia, but the thing is that those buyers there may have to pay more. That's the bottom line. Or if the businesses, the sellers would have to absorb the higher costs.
Mhm.
And the thing is, the point of Trump is to create more jobs in the U.S., attract more investments into the U.S. That has been his promise. He's trying to really point that one out. And in between, it's really doing all these negotiations. And that has been his track record also. There will
Well.
be compromises, concessions along the way, and uh, it's everybody else would be, they'll adapt. They'll sell more to other countries like the Philippines, and the
That's right.
Philippines
All
would
right. My
benefit
last
because
point.
the Philippines is a net importer country.
My last point, Michael, before I let you go. So, although this tariff rate involves only exports, but would this affect our economic numbers like our inflation rate, our interest rates, and also at the same time our GDP? So, would that affect
Yeah,
us?
slower world economy, Mr. Jerome, because exports around the world would slow down because of the uncertainties. Even investments, they're on a wait and see mode. Even some employment may be affected, especially the supply chain of the exporters. It's going to slow down the world economy. Indirectly, it's going to slow down the Philippine economy, and maybe indirectly through slower Philippine exports. But the thing is, it's really a function of diversified to more markets, exporters around the world, and eventually settling, eventually trying to try to really diversify the markets and diversify the products being exported. So those are the key. Export to more countries outside the U.S., tap more markets, and boost more export winners. But of course, the slowdown, that's a reality, and it could lead to more rate cuts by the BSP and by the Fed, and policies that would support economic growth and development.
Okay. All right.
So that would be the bottom line.
All right, Michael. So, meaning to say, America still dictates the world economy, and we have to watch out for more if Trump will implement another economic policies, as well as the Fed. The Fed will implement interest rates. Well, we'll have to watch out, as you mentioned. So this is going to be a wait and see mode.
Yeah, definitely, Mr. Jerome.
All right.
Still wait and see.
All right, it's a wait and see situation. Okay, and it's a very volatile economic situation across the globe. Okay, so very interesting interview. So anyway, thank you so much, Mr. Michael Ricafort, the Chief Economist of the Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, for joining us. And we appreciate you always as you take our invitation to have you on the program. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much also, Mr. Jerome, and to your viewers. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay. And that was the Chief Economist at the Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, Mr. Michael Ricafort. And with that, we conclude this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our production team and technical personnel, this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay, love the Philippines.
Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.